Like it or not, homosexuality is there in Africa. You cannot say it is un-African, can you?
It's un-African because it is inconsistent with African values of procreation, of a belief in the continuity of family and clan.
So the existence of homosexuals in Africa, you think, is compromising population growth in Africa? Is that what you're saying?
Certainly.
It is?
Yeah.
Can you give us a figure on that, Mr. Bahati?
No, I do not have to give you the figure because homosexuality is illegal in our country, and therefore there's no way we can capture this figure into our statistics.
Is it about 30 million people live in Uganda?
We have 33 million people living in Uganda.
33 million in Uganda, and you think that's not enough? You think your population's being compromised by the existence of homosexuals?
No, the key issue is it is inconsistent with our belief of continuity of family and clan.
All right.
That's key.
Festus Mahai, is homosexuality un-African?
No, because there are homosexuals in Africa as elsewhere. It does appear that homosexuality have always existed.
Paula, you have lived in several countries right across Africa. In your view, do you think that there is this kind of common position that homosexuality is either African or un-African?
I think it varies. I mean, but like Remo Hai said, it has always been with us, and ideological prejudice has also always been with us. So the question of whether it's African or not is really just a question of whether we want to cling to the ideological prejudice or whether we want to let people have the right to experience their own humanity. You know, you can't change human nature, but culture is about how you respond to it. So I would say homophobia is the un-African thing because homophobia creates a culture of hatred, it creates a culture of intolerance, and that has no space in our continent.
Siddique, so homosexuality is African, it's homophobia that is un-African. From an African and Muslim perspective, what's your view?
Well, I think homosexuality is un-African. First of all, because even though it's something that is human nature, it's not something that we have promoted. It's not something that in Africa naturally is seen as something deviant. People have their natural instincts, yes, but over centuries, even though we have had homosexuals over the years, over the centuries, they've not come out. It's not something we're used to in the African continent. And so when people
So what are you saying? You're all right with homosexuals existing as long as they're quiet about it?
Yes, because I think it offends the sensibility of others around them.
Why does it affect the sensibilities of others?
Because it's something that's over just recently now that they're starting to make it so public. Let me put it like that.
And then homophobia, Paula says that's the thing that is actually un-African. I mean, would you agree with that?
Well, I think nobody should attack anybody based on their natural instincts or whatever they feel like doing. As long as they're adults, they're consenting to it, people should leave others too.
And then, so, what about from a Muslim perspective? Because Nigeria has got around a dozen states that base their law on Sharia law, where if a man indulges in homosexuality, it is actually punishable by death. A lesbian would get 6 months in prison and 50 lashes. Well, but is that something you like? You like the idea of that?
Talking as a Muslim, homosexuality falls in the category of things that are forbidden, strictly. No, you know, it is not allowed. It is haram.
Yubi, I mean, I have to say to you that when Siddique says something like, actually, the majority of people's sensibilities are affronted when it comes to that very assertive gay agenda that we do see in Western countries, and it is that which is un-African. Fair point.
Not at all, Zainab. I mean, when I listen to David and also Siddique, what I hear is basically a tissue of irrational argument and hatred. And where does one even start? Let's start with David's point of view. This idea that African values is all about procreation and we're all a bunch of sex machines is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Okay? What does David have to say to a straight couple who's sterile that they should feel less African because they can't give birth to kids? What about a gay couple that have decided, actually, I want to have a kid, but I want to continue living in a same-sex relationship the day after I've spawned one? Will you be more comfortable with that person? It's just a badly thought-through point of view. And the same with Sadiqa's. I mean, this idea of the 2 points that she's mentioned, firstly, that I get offended. Well, I get offended by homophobes. Does that mean that he must go into the closet, as it were? No. We all have a right to exist. The fact that you are aesthetically insulted by looking at two people who are in the same-sex relationships, who are holding hands in public, that's neither here nor there. Why should I be condoning your homophobia?
Sadiqa, are you offended by
No, not
this
at all.
gentleman here?
No,
But he's
at
just
all.
told you he is a gay man working in gay activism, and he wants to be open about it.
Well,
are you offended by him?
No, I'm not. The display of their how do I put it in now?
Their position.
The public display of, that's what I mean by
Public display,
yes.
Two men kissing in public, for instance. You don't like
kind
that?
of thing. Well, we would ordinarily accept it from a straight couple.
Do you accept that, perhaps? I mean,
Well, it's a
do you
good
want
start,
the right?
Zainab,
Do you
but
want the right to kiss somebody, a male partner or boyfriend, in public?
Well, of course I do. I mean, it's a good
Well, he
start.
does.
That, you know, I'm not about to be lashed for what I'm doing if it was up to her. But the real question, Sadiqa, is this. Do you accept that the fact that you are offended in terms of your sensibilities, do you accept that there's no basis for public policy and for laws, that it's your own private viewpoint, and I respect your entitlement to have it, but you wouldn't co-sign your name to a bill by David? Do you accept that?
I won't co-sign my name to a bill like that.
All right, we'll develop that point later.